Hey Journey on the Fly family. Today we're beginning to shoot a couple tutorials. Now I want to make something very clear up front to all those gentlemen and women who have been fishing longer than me, who've been in the competitive world, who have written books. This is a compliment to you. This is not to retract from the work that you've done. And some of you who may view this channel know who you are, and I want to thank you for that. What I'm doing with my tutorials is I'm taking the little quirky ways that I learn things and simply trying to reinterpret them to the people that watch our channel, because sometimes, and parents, if you're a parent, you watch this, you understand what I mean, especially if you take your kids to like youth group or something. What you end up finding is you tell your kid to do this and to do this and do this, and they don't seem to get it. And then they go to youth group and the youth pastor, or maybe it's a teacher at your public school, happens to tell them the same thing and they start doing it. And it frustrates us because it seems like they're not listening. It seems like they're not paying attention to us, and like our authority, at least on that topic, is gone. But here's what really happens. We all here learn differently. Some are visual, some are those that have to retain it through reading, some can do it through a video, and some are doers. Now, my theory on it is that the best learning happens when we incorporate all of those. But here's the truth of it. We all learn different, and voices translate things to us differently. Your youth pastor translated whatever that subject was to your kid better, or that school teacher simply translated it differently, and they grasp it. So instead of being upset by it, we should rejoice in the fact that my kid finally got it right. And we're the same way as adults, let's just be honest. So in that same respect, that's how I'm approaching these tutorials. I want to lay that out front because I'm not going to put myself up here as some grand expert. That's ridiculous. I have a lot to learn, and I think we all have a lot to learn if we're honest, which is why I want to offer these tutorials. So let's get at it. Today, I want to start with a brief and basic introduction to Euro nymphing. Just answer this question. What is Euro nymphing? It also goes by, with distinctions in these titles, tight lining or drop shotting, which I think is just another interpretation of the same type of technique. All have their place. You'll also hear people like George Daniel call it contact nymphing, because he sees and interprets the world of Euro nymphing as the general topic or general title or category differently, and his interpretation of it helps different people in different ways, such as myself. So Euro nymphing is really a technique that came out of the competition world, and there's so many adaptations and interesting things that come out of that world, but that's for a different video where I'm interviewing some actual competitive anglers, people that have been doing this a long time. So in a sense, it's taking a longer fly rod than typical, usually 10 foot or more. Usually you don't get more than 11 foot, especially in Pennsylvania. There's no need for it, in my opinion. Maybe in the winter for upstream casting. Then you have, usually we'll start with the inside of the reel and work our way out. You're gonna have some backing in there, really to take up some of the bulk of the reel, because as I talked about in a minute, the bigger spool that you can handle on a reel on a rod, it does a couple things for you, especially with the line that you may have on it. Typically from backing, somebody will run a level line, competitive nymphing line, which is part of the competition world. It's required to have at least that level line on there. And then from there, you usually have a very long leader built. And that leader is predominantly built of monofilament, somewhere between 1.5 to 2 times the length of the rod itself. And in that, there's going to be varying degrees of leader thickness, from a typical leader of maybe a 20-pound butt section to down to a 4-pound section for that matter. And there's almost invariably always going to be sighter material of some kind built in it so that you can see strike detection and so forth. And then the nymphs, or the flies, are generally a little bit different. They're usually a heavier weighted fly. Many of them are tungsten weighted. Now that is not to say that when I nymph, if I'm running a 2-fly rig, I don't have maybe a heavy fly and then a fly that has no weight on it. It depends on the conditions. There's a lot of, in my opinion, cool technicality that goes into Euro nymphing. It's very versatile. I mean, you can dry fly fish with it. You're not gonna make a 40, 50, 60 foot cast in a beautiful, delicate presentation as much as you would on a normal dry fly rig, but you can do it. You can streamer fish with it, which is what we're doing today. And it's just a fantastic way to catch fish because it puts your flies where most fish never see flies. You're catching fish that have maybe never been caught, because typically on a suspension or a floating rig, like a suspension rig of like say a thingamabobber or the new Oros or something like that, you're disconnected very much so from your flies, because when a take happens, you might not be able to see it or sense it through the indicator itself, which is just another word for a suspension rig. So in summary, Euro nymphing came out of the competitive world. It came out of Europe, hence Euro nymphing. It's a European adapted way of fly fishing, and it definitely is fly fishing. And I'll talk about why it's not spin fishing with a fly rod in another video that we're going to do about misconceptions Euro nymphing. So if you got any questions about this, or even comments, maybe you're like, man, you're full of bull, let me hear it. I'm willing to learn. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it helps. And then check out the other tutorials. And remember, like and subscribe, hit that notification button. That helps us tremendously. My son and I are trying to do this, not because we want to be superstars. Listen to our other videos. We have a lot of religious and philosophical content. So if we wanted to be superstars, every video would be called Euro nymphing, and that's all we'd be doing is going after big fish. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing, but we don't look to make $1 million on YouTube. We look to make a difference in how people have made a difference in my life. So remember, till the next time, it is not about the destination, it's the journey that makes you. Thank you.